Hey everyone, on this lesson we are going to study masks in an IP address. On the previous lesson we introduced the IP address and we also discussed that there were two ways for recognizing the net ID and the host ID. And using mask was the first one and also the most used, so we are going to now study how we can use masks to identify the net ID and the host ID. So, first of all, what is a mask? Well, a mask is another bit, essentially a number of 32-bit, that goes along with an IP address. So we also have a number of 32 bits, right? 32 ones and zeros. And this mask number correspondence is the following. 1 is used in correspondence of the net ID and 0 into the host ID. So, for instance, the number of ones that we see first on the left, okay, the number of bits that we see on the left, is essentially the number of bits that will correspond to the net ID, to the network identifier, and the rest of numbers, all of the zeros on the right, correspond to the number of bits for the host ID. So here we have an example. Here we have the mask, we have 24 ones, and then we have 8 zeros. Of course, this is a number of 32 bits. As we know here, the mask is also 32 bits. And now we also know that since we have 24 ones, the net ID will be of 24 bits. And since we have 8 zeros, the host ID will be of 8 bits. Now, the mask is also represented with 4 decimal places separated by a period, or as a single decimal number that represents the number of ones in a row. These representations can be seen here. So if we have 24 ones, just imagine, right, 24 ones. We know that with 8 ones, okay, we have the number 255. If you write in binary 8 ones, this is the value 255. So here we have 8 ones, here we have 8 ones, for now we have 16 ones, and finally we have also here at the end 8 ones, right? So we have 24 ones in total, and then we have all zeros. Keep in mind that if we have 8 bits, all of them are 0 in decimal, this is just 0, right? So this is the number. This is the notation of 4 decimals separated by a period, and then another very important new notation of masks, okay, this is a new notation of masks only, is that we can also denote the number of ones in a row with the slash. So as we can see here, we have slash 24. And why so? Well, we have slash 24 because we have 24 ones in a row, right? And then we have the 0. So with the slash 24, this mask here, okay, this is a mask that represents the same as this mask and also the same as this mask. So 3 different notations that we can see in here. Along this course, we are going to work many times with masks. There you go. Now let's study examples so we can fully understand the masks in an IP address. So suppose we have this IP address, okay, with the 4 decimal places notation that we already know. So we have this IP address of 32 bits. Each decimal number, okay, separated by a period, is a number of 8 bits in binary. So we have 8, 16, right, 24 and 32. Very well. So we also have the mask, and the mask, as we can see, is also denoted in decimal notation. We have here 255, 255, and 255. Remember that this is 8 ones, 8 ones, and 8 ones. Therefore, we will select the 24 first bits, but is the same as the first 3 decimal digits, right? If we take the first 3 decimal digits, we are taking the first 24 bits, right? The first 24 ones, and this will be the net ID. That's why here we can conclude that the first 3 numbers, 202, 4, 20, they are the network identifier, they are the net ID, and the rest, all of the zeros, is the host ID, okay, the number that identifies the host. So here, in a context, this net ID will be what identifies our network. So all of the hosts inside this network will have the same net ID, and different hosts inside this same network will have different host ID. The only thing that will change for them will be the host ID. Okay, let's continue with the second example. Now we have this IP address, right? 845, 7, 20, in this case 83, 3, and 4. So we have this IP address also, as always, with 32 bits. And now we're taking a mask of 16. Now note that we're using here the notation where we select and we represent the number of ones with a slash. This notation in here, right? This number here represents the number of ones in a row. So here we have the number of ones in a row, we have a total of 16. This means that we will select the first 2 decimal numbers, because each decimal number is 8. So this is 8, this is 16. So we will select this first number, 847, and this second, 83. That's why the net ID will be this one, okay, the first 2 decimal values, and the host ID will be the rest. Keep in mind that this mask, okay, this 16, can be represented, okay, in decimal notation as this value in here. In fact, if you just type a slash in 16 and a slash in this value, this is the same, okay? This mask also select the first 16 bits, right? 8 bits here plus 8 bits here, then we have the total 16. Okay, so commonly we'll use this representation with a slash and the number of ones in a row. This is the most used notation for representing masks, although it is important also to know this decimal representation in here, right? And also the binary, okay, correspondence that this represents. Finally, let's study the last example. So here we have this IP address also with 32 bits, right? 71, 45, 202, and 827, and now we select the mask of only 8 bits. So here we are only selecting the first 8 digits in binary to be the net ID. Therefore, if each decimal value here is 8 bits, we are only going to select the first one, only going to select the 71, right? So here the net ID will only be 71, and the host ID the remaining, okay, of this IP address, so 45, 202, and 827. Here on this network, all of the hosts that belong to this same net ID, to this same network, they will have the same net ID, and different hosts of this same network will have different values of this host ID, right? So since this is the first lesson where we introduce masks, okay, in the internet protocol, as we can see, we are only dealing with masks that are very easy to identify and to distinguish the net ID with the host ID. Why? Why are these masks 8, 16, and 24 called easy masks? Well, they are easy because the net ID and the host ID separation falls into a period. As we can see, all of these cases, this is the same as /24, okay? We select, for instance, here the first 3 values, here the first 2 values, and here the first 1 value. So we are only selecting whole decimal numbers, so this separation is very easy. There will be cases, however, that this separation will not be that easy, and we are also going to study. This is something that we are going to call complex masks, because the separation of the net ID and the host ID will not fall into a period. This is something that we are going to study on the future lessons.